Okay, so we need to set the scene for you guys for this episode.
We just spent 3 days in the boatyard working underneath the Skyway Bridge. It was hot, we were sweaty. We finally got away from the boatyard, and then we had to turn around and go right back there because we ran aground and had to spend another day there. But needless to say, when we got to the marina that night,
We were in dire need of a shower.
and it turns out that where we were at had nothing.
No, they
There
didn't
were
have any
port-a-potties. So we had plans to meet Jeff and Linda, the previous owners of our boat, for dinner in Ottawa, which was 2 days down the river.
But you know how plans go on boats.
After the 4th day of no showers, we filled up that morning and rushed off down the river and forgot to put the fuel cap back on.
So it was only a couple miles to the next marina where we were going to get our shower and fill up our water tanks.
And I decided that I was going to clean all the grime and dirt and dust off the deck of the boat. So I proceeded to wash down the decks right into the fuel tank. Luckily, we had just filled up literally 20 minutes before, and there was no room for water to get into the fuel tank without first displacing the diesel. But the prospect of having water in the fuel tank was very bad, so our short stop quickly became a much longer stop.
You see this?
Yeah.
Do you see this piece right here?
Yep.
Are you able to get into a spot where you can hold that on?
Yeah. That's the size? Oh, wow. All right. Can I get a smaller one?
Nope.
No?
No, because it won't open wide enough.
So we had never changed our Raycor fuel filter before.
Yeah, I mean, it's easiest from where I'm at right here.
Okay.
Can you unscrew the bottom part?
Yep.
You can?
I think so.
I did not grow up around engines.
Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey?
Yeah, so you need to go, it's reversed
It's
because it's
upside
upside
down,
down, so you need to go
to the
towards you.
left, right?
Yeah.
I've changed the oil in my car for many years, but brakes are kind of beyond my comfort zone. I've replaced electric motor in a washing machine once, but engine maintenance and repair is all new territory.
Should it be this hard?
No. Just unscrew that and they'll both come together and we'll figure out how it goes back together after that.
Is this whole thing just gonna fall down into the cup, possibly?
It's possible. Okay. Alright, leave it like that.
Okay.
Can you hold the bolt?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect.
Wow. Look at that.
So now what I don't know is how you clean the inside of this bowl out. Can we unscrew it?
I didn't get that far.
Alright, well let's figure that out.
And man, there is some gunk in there.
And it has some gunk buildup on it.
Yikes.
Alright, I think we're clean.
Yeah, looks pretty good. So we need to put the filter in there, right?
Yeah.
Well, first we need to put the thing on the bottom. Right?
Yeah, that worked really well. That worked way better than I thought it would. Scrape out and then flush out.
So after cleaning everything up, it was time to start up the engine and make sure everything was working.
I'm on both.
Okay, ready?
Ready.
We had read that the biggest issue people have is getting air in the fuel lines, but that if the engine restarted, you shouldn't have to bleed, that everything should be good.
We just successfully cleaned the fuel filter.
Ooh, there was a bubble. Did you see that?
No.
See that?
Yeah.
Oh, there's a lot of air. Where's all that coming from? The fuel filter T on top is tight. It might have been trapped in up underneath that. No.
We let the engine run for a good 15 minutes, just looking around at the engine, trying to hear if anything sounded weird or leaking.
It all sounded fine. The sun had already gone down. We weren't leaving the dock that night.
We decided it was as good a time as any to install the sound deadening stuff we had purchased that was just taking up space.
Because it was a project we didn't get to before we left Wisconsin.
We're motoring now. We're a motorboat. And we didn't motor for a full day. But already an hour and a half of motoring, and I was sick of hearing the engine.
See.
So, our companionway stairs have a little bit of sound deadening behind them, but there's this gap at the top. So I cut a piece of teak trim before we left to cover that, which should do wonders. For killing sound, you need to prevent it from escaping first and foremost into the places you don't want it. Then you need to try and stop vibrations and stop the sound from traveling through other things, which creates more noise. And then the last thing you can do is to reflect sound back into areas that you don't care if it's loud, which is the engine room. So the first thing is we're going to try and block up a couple of holes. Then I bought this stuff, which accomplishes the last two tasks. It's very heavy, so it prevents things from vibrating and it traps the sound inside of it. And then it's also reflective. It comes in 12-inch by 12-inch squares. It's got a sticky back, a reflective front, and this foam sound deadening stuff with a thin layer of heavy, like rubberized, I don't know what type of material it is.
That's pretty squishy.
It is a little squishy. So that's what makes it pretty heavy. I mean, this box probably weighs, I don't know,
It does.
15 pounds?
Yeah, I was gonna say 20.
These we're basically just gonna stick up under our cockpit floor and on the side of our cockpit locker. And we're gonna hope that it does something for us. Let's dead some sound. This is my sound deadening smusher.
What do we got here? Darkness. We have complete darkness.
Yeah.
Look at that.
I don't know if this is a good idea or not.
What?
Me being in here.
What?
It's like a millimeter too tall on this left side.
Oh, seriously? Like it won't push in? That's what I was wondering, if even though you drew that line, like,
I know, but I went over the line.
with all the tape, right?
No, I went over the line like an idiot.
What? What? Why did you do that?
Why did I do that?
Why'd you go over the line? You drew a line, I
I
thought.
wasn't paying attention. I had 2 gin and tonics.
Oh, shoot.
This right side fits perfect. Oh, man.
Good morning. The next morning, we were so excited to get on the river.
But only after we did a little bit of yoga on the dock. So we fired up the engine. He started right up again.
Yay!
And we motored out of the marina and onto the river.
And we were off. We were
We had
elated.
A beautiful morning to finally start putting some miles underneath the keel. We made it about a quarter of a mile.
I was at the helm and Kirk was up on the bow, and all of a sudden, a little bit of different sound came from the engine. And we both looked at each other
So I
immediately.
yelled back to Lauren, I think the engine's about to cut out. Be prepared to restart it. And pretty much as soon as I finished that sentence, the engine stopped.
We're floating down the river and we have no engine.
The entire time I was just thinking, as long as there's no towboat that makes his way around that corner, we're gonna be okay. Eventually, Lauren lost all steerage.
The engine has stopped. We think we have water or air bubbles in the line. Kirk is currently rowing us to that dock, hopefully. Right there.
Can you make sure the rudder is straight?
Yeah. All right, we're straight.
And before I could get there, we ran aground for the second time in 24 hours. But this time we were pretty excited about it because at least it meant we were no longer drifting aimlessly down the river.
We were stuck, and we were a good stuck. Our nerves were completely on end. And once we stopped and Kirk was back aboard, we kind of just had to take a moment and think, actually, we're okay. We're totally fine. The boat is not moving. We are physically okay. We weren't in any immediate danger of any other boats hitting us. Now we just need to figure out
how to solve
start
the problem.
engine.
And with my limited knowledge of diesel engines, I knew that you need 3 things: compression, fuel, and oxygen. The only thing that I could keep thinking that changed was we weren't getting fuel. Somehow we had air trapped in the line. Somehow we must have messed up the Raycor fuel filter swap, because the other 2 things wouldn't have suddenly just changed. In my mind, 30 minutes of the engine running fine, it just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
But as we were stuck on the ground on a river, I wasn't thinking all that clearly. So I went through kind of a rush job of trying to bleed the engine. And we have a Westerbeek 40, which is notoriously difficult to bleed. There's 4 manual bleeding points, and I made it through the first one.
And while we were doing this, I think we were like, we're really on our own. Like, we need to figure out how to start this engine or else we are SOL. And then I thought, hey, Kirk, we have Boat US insurance. Maybe we should call them.
We had
Now is as good a time as any.
We had completely forgotten that it came with our insurance, the unlimited towing.
Yeah, and we knew we were only a mile downriver, so it couldn't have been that big of a deal. And it wasn't. I called up the dispatcher and said, yeah, sure, it'll probably be about an hour. So
Lauren made breakfast.
I made breakfast.
He's just getting us unstuck right now.
What was the whole, I'm going to put you on the hip thing?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, go ahead, take it up.
You want me to complete? All right.
Well, can you get that front line on a cleat and then...
Yeah. This one right, Kirk?
Yeah.
Thanks.
You want the whole end, or?
Just drape it over. We're not going very far. We're in the river. If that line starts to get short, let me know, okay?
Okay.
You want to be towards the back or to the
How
stern?
long is this boat?
37.
Yeah, so I'm going to go right about here.
Okay.
It's a little different.
Yeah. Got it? Yep.
Fenders look good.
Yeah.
Hey, first tow break.
Yeah.
How fun.
How fun.
It's pretty shallow off to the port. We're going to favor the starboard side of the river, all right?
All right.
Yeah, if you want to work the stern, even if you have to take it off the wind now, I can always put another line on there. Where are you guys from?
We started in Racine. I'm actually from Michigan. She's from Wisconsin.
Yeah, you never really know until you start driving. The water
Yeah.
pressure separates it. Can you just drape this over that winch?
You got it.
I was there raising
I have to say, you've been a really nice guy, but I really hope we don't see it.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I'm a boater first and foremost.
This river trip was off to a rough start.
Yeah.
Heading back north up the river in the wrong direction for the second time in 2 days.
The bummer about going back this time was we had no idea what was going on.
So we called up our friend Bruce from Racine and a cousin of mine who is a helicopter diesel mechanic. Both of them shared some words of wisdom and encouragement, but we still couldn't get it figured out. We spent a couple of hours repeatedly trying to bleed the lines and swearing profusely.
But then we got a call back from Bruce.
Hey, Kirk, I know you just replaced your fuel filter. Did you happen to turn the fuel off before doing that? As soon as he started that sentence, I knew exactly what we had done wrong.
We deprived our own engine of fuel.
We got an engine that works. We got an engine that works.
Oh yeah!
She's alive!
She's alive!
There's a theory called Occam's razor where you start with the easiest, dumbest solution first. Like, is the computer plugged into the wall? I think we learned a lot in this whole episode, in this first week on the river. One is that trouble often comes in groups of 3.
We ran aground and we had problems with our centerboard. Number 2 was...
we flushed water into our fuel tank.
Yeah.
And number 3 was we didn't turn back on our fuel before trying to start the engine again.
Yeah.
The other thing we learned was that we created most of our own problems.
Yeah.
So with a little more thought and planning, well, a little more thought and a little less planning, and to just go with the flow, slow down, and step back and try and think things through, really helps out with problem solving on a boat. It was good to learn all of these lessons early on in our trip in a relatively safe environment, and we were extremely fortunate and lucky to have incredibly helpful and kind individuals who stepped in to help us deal with our own self-made problems.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is just everything was new. Every single thing was new. So, yeah, the more you do it, the easier it gets.
We are dumb idiots, and we bring it all on ourselves. But our engine is working now. Yay!
So, yay!
Oh my God.